And I don't mean to be ableist or even to demean people that have more intense forms of mental illness or mental illness that does not allow them to negotiate or navigate the system. Because if I have a mental illness that does not allow me to work a job, to attend school and successfully graduate, to pay bills, to maintain a residence in a car, then they recognize it as mental illness. But if I'm sick in the fucking head, but I can do those things, then it's not defined as mental illness. If I hoard cats, if I was sitting here as Bro Diallo and I had in my small home with my wife and child, and I had 60 cats here, and I was refused to have a reasonable number of house pets, if I have too many house pets, or if I have a bunch of magazines and newspapers stacked up to the wall, and I just can go to a maze and we can't even fully enjoy our home because there's so many magazines and newspapers here, or if all over town I had all these storage units full of just stuff that I can't use, that I can't access, then people would be like, he's not well. But if I hoard money, if I was sitting here with a stack of money and I'm like, if I had a money, thousands of dollars, and I'm here like, if the money talk, I ain't hearing. If it ain't money talking, I ain't listening. And y'all look back here and you see gold bars and stacks of cash. And I had banks all over town just full of more money than I could ever utilize. I own dozens of properties that I can't even live in. If I'm like Puff Daddy said, I got so many spots, I don't even buy luggage. I own so much property all over the world, I don't even have to pack when I travel. Then I would be celebrated. When the same mentality, the same mental corruption, the same mental dysfunction that would motivate one to hoard newspapers or cats is identical to the one that motivates you to hoard money. And one people we seek to institutionalize and treat, and other people we allow them to govern our lives, to control our institutions. What am I? Uh-oh. I'm sorry. So anyway, we say shit. Back to my point going into this. We say things and stop saying things and not meaning it. Say it with your chest. If you say something, really grasp what you're saying. Stop saying white supremacy in casual conversation, because y'all don't really mean it. Y'all don't really grasp it. And white supremacy does not mean white people govern the world. And so that's a problem, because white people are in control. White people being in control is not simply, well, they get to press the buttons and we don't. They get to sit up front of the train and we have to sit in the back. They get to eat caviar while we can have to eat fried chicken. Them ruling the world means that, as European scholars and scientists have asserted when they get honest, that Western culture has a death urge. So white supremacy isn't just about them having more stuff, them being able to commit crimes and get lesser sentences. It's not just about them having better accommodations, or them being able to turn on mass media and see validating images of themselves, representation. Them being able to say, well, my natural hair and my blonde eyes are the standard of beauty. It's not even just about them having a longer lifespan. It is about them dictating reality. And we have seen through the course of history that they have a death urge. Their motivation and drive is to exploit everything to extinction. We see them changing the very atmosphere. They change the very atmosphere, the very concentration of oxygen in the air. The chemical makeup of the atmosphere is being disrupted. Deforestation, mass extinction. Europeans are having the same impact as the meteor that took out the dinosaurs. Every year, hundreds of mammal, plant, reptile, ocean species go to extinction. Every single ecosystem and biosphere on the planet is being disrupted. So it ain't just about someone being able to be convicted of multiple felonies and still become president. That shit is annoying as fuck. And I say this, and when I say it, it's like, the way I see our people functioning. The people, not just the masses, bless their hearts. They're the masses for a reason. But the people who claim to be conscious, I don't see us behaving as though we really understand and we really accept what global white supremacy is. What it really means. They are unfit to rule. Forget about their unworthiness to rule. But they're unfit to rule. Right now, we have all of the understanding and all of the technology and the full capacity to stop the ravages of climate change. But the European says, well, we have to negotiate and determine how can we stop climate change while preserving and advancing the system of white hegemony and capitalism. How do we put out the fire and keep the flames? We want to stop the heat. How do we stop the damage of the heat but maintain the fire? It is not possible. And they have determined for themselves and the rest of the world, death is more preferable than a reduction in profits. Death is more preferable than the withdrawal of our military infrastructure. And not just the death of me and you, who cares? Not just the death of them and their own fucking children, but the death of the polar bears, the death of the microbes, the microscopic life forms that are necessary to maintain life in your body. There is more DNA from bacteria than DNA from human DNA in your body. Your body unto itself is a biome and an ecosystem. And inside your body, every generation has more and more concentration of artificially manufactured products like plastic, artificial hormone mimicking chemicals. We know this. There's a capacity to stop, reverse, reduce, and cease this. But the decision is consciously and deliberately made not to do it because it could hinder profits. And the vast majority of people, I have a good brother that just told me, I'm a capitalist and I make profits too. I said, you don't make profits, you make earnings. I had a little business and people were like, you claim you're against capitalism, but you have a business and you're making profits. I said, I've never had a profitable business. I've had a successful business. I've had a couple of successful businesses. I had a successful vegan restaurant. I had a successful catering business, vegan catering. And I had a successful packaging wholesale businesses where we sold to retailers as opposed. And I had a very successful little media company, Guerrilla Media. And in all of those, I didn't make profits because you got black people waking up, taking showers, getting dressed, and then walking in and unlocking a business. At that very fucking moment, you're no longer making profit. You're making earnings. We don't even know the difference between profits and earnings, but I don't want to go down that. I'm digressing. All I want to say is, I wish we would stop, because there was a time where black folks didn't talk about white folks because it was very risky. You didn't come out your face at white folks. There were even black people that were afraid there was a time where we were afraid to say white. There's even some Negroes now, they're afraid to say white. They're afraid to say black. They get on and say, people who look like me, people of color. There are entities and certain groups of people. So I saw it as an advance that black folks were able to actually name things. I don't take it for granted that we're able to say shit. That our ancestors, my great-grandfather, Grandpa Bowie, taught me a lot of shit. He taught me how to tend a yard, make household repairs, how to prime a lawnmower engine. I was so proud that I knew how to prime a lawnmower engine, or repair a lawnmower engine, and maintain a lawnmower. And now I have an electric lawnmower, so that all that. But I really do appreciate that. And I'm able to say shit that he would never dream of saying. This is a man who came to adulthood under Jim Crow and raised a black family in one of the most racist regions of the world today, the Midwest. That more insidious, erosive racism is even sometimes more deadly than the overt, open racism. And I don't take for granted that I'm in a better position than him. We are in a better position than our ancestors, and we squander. We do less with more. So I'm glad we can say it, but now we take it for granted. And I hear more and more people that acknowledge global white supremacy, but it's real peculiar to me that people will say it, acknowledge it, but don't understand it. And there's some other things that are more relevant to what I'm saying today, because one thing you hear people say, and if nobody said it, the moment you hear it, it becomes immediately clear. Everybody knows about the frog in the pot. When I say the frog in the pot, you know exactly what I'm getting at. There's this old parable or metaphor that you put a frog in a pot of tepid water, and you slowly increase the temperature. And the frog doesn't notice. And so people always talk about, it's a parable. And the frog gets slowly boiled alive. And we talk about that's how things in society works. Things get progressively worse in society. And because we're in society, we're inside of it. So our perspective is skewed. And so as things slowly get worse, we just keep going about our days, going about our lives as if nothing's happening. And by the time we recognize that we're in a boiling pot, it's too late. Now, everybody knows this parable. Everybody's heard it. Many of us have said it. We claim to understand it. But as the United States goes further and further to fascism, all you people saying, there's no change. There's no difference. It's all the same. Ain't nothing changed. It's all the same. Ain't no difference between Democrats, Republican, Kamala, Trump. It's all the same. If it's all the same, then that means the water temperature hasn't changed, even if the water's hot. And you think, but if you say there's nothing changed, and you're like, that means, well, the water's boiling. That means you believe either the water is at its peak temperature and can't get any hotter. Things are as bad as they can possibly be and can't get any worse. Or the water's staying the same. So everybody is saying there ain't no difference between Democrats and Republicans. That means you're saying either we're at the peak temperature, there's no increase to be had, or we're at some stage between tepid and boiling, and this particular time in history, the temperature has not been turned up. And some of y'all are so dumb to say, well, Trump is a decrease in temperature. We defeated the evil Democrats. So it has to be something. The transition from neoliberalism, to overt fascism is either a reduction in temperature, a maintenance in temperature, or an increase in temperature. If you think both parties are the same, then you're saying there's a maintenance of temperature. And if you think both parties are the same and we are either, then where are we? If you think both parties are the same, where do we stand? Is the water at full boil and things can't get any worse? Is the water at peak temperature and can't go any higher? Are we boiling? If things are the same and we're not boiling, that means things have not gotten worse. They've pretty much reached the same. They've been maintained. Or do you think the temperature has been reduced? Because I keep hearing this both parties rhetoric. Oh, they're both parties this, both parties that. So answer my question. Are we at peak? Have we been sustained at the same, or have we been reduced? Because when it's very easy, like I said, we need to start speaking clearly. If we're going to speak publicly, if you want to be anti-intellectual, anti-analytical, anti-academic, if you want to be regressive, or just plain mindless, it's fine. You could be that in your own head. But if you want to speak publicly, debate publicly, engage publicly, be seen and heard publicly, you at least owe it to people to put on your intellectual deodorant. If you're going to go out in public, you should take some measures of hygiene. If you want to just sit at home, figuratively, then you can sit at home and nobody has any right to kick in your door and complain about your hygiene. But if you come out in public, you should have some consideration for your fellow person that has to come into contact with you physically and mentally. So which is it? See? And this is another thing. They have the same goal. So what are you saying? That a Trump election means nothing. Trump's election has no greater depth or meaning. It's just a continuation of, it would have been no difference if Kamala was elected. So where are we in this boiling pot analogy? Because Esme, all the same characters are saying the same stuff that they don't really suss out. There's no penetration. I love to open this up and have people explain this to me because no one has answered my question. They just both the same, da 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 da. And I come to you and your doctor says, hey, you have stage 4 cancer, or you have stage 1 cancer. You have a malignant melanoma. You have a benign tumor. Oh, cancer's cancer. They're all cancer. Cancer's the same. And your doctor will say, I have to put you in for a psych eval. And then I come to you and say, well, no, cancer are not the same. And different cancers require different levels of a treatment, and different cancers denote different levels of advancement of the disease. Oh, you support cancer. You said that stage 5 cancer is worse than stage 2 cancer, so you support cancer. You don't acknowledge that all cancers are the same. But I noticed that people who comfortably can make that, because I can't afford it. Me as someone who stands in opposition to the systems and institutions of capitalism and white hegemony, I can't afford the comfort of saying it's all the same. I have to look at this shit and see where it's going. I have to look and try to understand and comprehend because I want to counter. Not only do I want to counter this system, I want to educate, equip, and motivate other people to counter it. So I don't have the convenience of saying it's all the same, ain't no difference. Even when many of the symptoms are the same, and even many of the treatments or remedies might be the same, I still have to know the distinct differences. Great. You see, it's all the same characters. It's all the same characters. And making all these surface ridiculous, both as if, let's just go with Lee, both are anti-African. Many of them, they're both anti-African. They're both white supremacy. They're both fascist. Now, I wouldn't say they're both fascist. They're both imperialist. And here's the thing. Imperialism has had many faces, has many strategies, has many tactics. Imperialism has ebbed and flowed. They have created and broken alliances. So even under just saying, well, this person is just calling someone an imperialist tells you very little about them. Where is it located? You look at the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the Germans, the Italians, the British, all of these empires, they all had different practices, strategy. If you look at Western imperialism, and then you look at these new actors and new emergents, and that's why we could be like, well, Islamic imperialism. I was talking to a black scholar that told me there's no such thing as Islamic imperialism. When you got Muslims from Indonesia to Senegal, and you just think all these people from Indonesia to Senegal and more simplicity. Well, he's saying bad things about the Republicans, so therefore he must be a Democrat. I'm telling you that revolution is an intellectual endeavor, and menticide and anti-intellectualism is hindering our capacity to understand and destroying our capacity to counter these phenomena. But I digress. Let's move on. Yes, because I just said they're neoliberals. The GOP has moved from neoliberalism to avert fascism. But why am I arguing with the comments? Let me just move on with my discussion. And y'all can come on here live and make jackasses of yourself on camera as opposed to making jackasses of yourself in the comments. I welcome you. So we often talk about things like the frog in the pot, or what I love here, people talk about divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. And at the very moment they talk about division and conquer, they rest well in divide and conquer. So I would just like to challenge everyone listening to, when we talk about phenomena related to power, the state, our liberation, try to embody those things. Try to really, when you express that point of view, when you express phenomena, try to really, for your own self, really go into what that really means. And simply calling something out does not render you exempt from it. Yeah, people act like frogs in the pot. People sleepwalking, but we divide and conquered. You have to say, a lot of times when I hear people who talk about these phenomena, they are not only a part of it, engaged in it, a victim of it, but they perpetuate it and advance it at the same time they denounce it, which makes capitalism so brilliant, that have people attacking the very thing that they are advancing and think they're against it. You have black people rising up in corporate America and think that black people becoming titans of industry, black people becoming CEOs or becoming billionaires is a challenge to white hegemony, to white power. Tyler Perry Studios putting out anti-African, pro-Christian propaganda is somehow a challenge to the white propaganda machine. Obama's election was somehow evidence of our capability and worthiness, and us coming to power and us advancing. When Obama's election, I would argue, was evidence, especially now that we're a decade out of his administration, is evidence of our regression. Obama's election was not a sign of progress. It is a sign of regression, because it demonstrated that we pose absolutely no threat. We are better assets to the systems than a threat. Make this part of your daily affirmation, even though it's negative as hell. In their effort to control and dominate the world, white people have more black allies than black enemies. So moving on. It's funny how the right wing, the conservatives, MAGA, I'm just going to talk about the MAGA sphere, but that's kind of an umbrella, because even in Trump's first administration, I said Trump has a very unique coalition.